Netflix reported today that they have lost over 200,000 subscribers in the first quarter, which I believe totals to what I've heard. The number was over $2 million in losses. That's insane. Now, let's look at this in a broader scope. It's easy to figure out why they're losing customers. Easy. Okay, number one, COVID's over. Well, not COVID. The pandemic is over. Obviously, the numbers went up when the pandemic happened. People were staying home, this and that. Now we're back. People are back to work. You have rising costs, inflation. Netflix continues to raise their prices every year. They're now topped out at $20 a month now on their service. But they've been losing distributors for the last 2, 3, 4 years now. Netflix had a head start for 10 years. They used to be able to have all the access to shows, distribution rights to shows, and then eventually those shows that were owned by other companies, those companies ended up opening their own, streaming services. Peacock and Disney Plus. Disney Plus has rights to the Marvel stuff, and once Disney Plus became a thing, they got their Marvel stuff back. And Peacock, once they became a thing, they got back The Office and The Friends and whatnot. People subscribe to Netflix because of those shows. So now they're starting to panic now, and there's rumors now about them really starting to really double down on this idea of sharing passwords and stuff. So they're gonna make it harder for people to share passwords. I don't know what they're gonna do, because the problem is now too, especially again, you're charging top dollar for a product that's actually losing. And granted, they have a lot of content. Let's be real here. They have a lot of content. They have more than enough content to sustain itself. But the cat's out of the bag now. You can't keep raising prices and think people are going to continue paying for it, especially in an era of inflation. People are losing where gas is over $4 a gallon, and everything. Food prices will go through the roof. There's shortages everywhere, and you're going to continue raising prices, of course. Sometimes to give. Something like Netflix at $20 a month. You give up to that. Like my wife and I, we adjusted our Netflix. We've been customers since 2007, 2008. And we now pay for the cheapest part of tier of the service, was like one screen, because we don't use Netflix in the same way that we used to, because we have so many streaming services right now at this point that we don't, like, paying top dollar for it now is not worth it. We can use that $13 difference in our pocket. But the ever changing climate of subscription based stuff. With more companies existing, more companies starting to bring their own, create their own content and to take control of the content. And a company like Netflix, who had a head start for many years, is getting hurt by the wayside. So now they're trying to find ways to stop the bleeding, if you will. And now they're saying too also that they expect even more losses in the second quarter, which we'll know over the summer. It's going to be interesting to see how the Netflix adjusts now, because I said years ago that they need to get to, even though they had the head start of having the distribution stuff. I said this on this podcast 4 years ago. They need to double down on their own original content. And they've done that, for the record. But I don't think they've made the splash in the same way they thought they would make. Like, you have their shows they've done, their Stranger Things and whatnot, and all those other shows I can't really name off the top of my head. But it hasn't been enough to sustain. And at some point, they're going to have to make a move. I think doing the password thing, while it might be a great idea in theory for the sake of business, is going to piss off a lot of people. And the problem with that, too, also is that people today, like myself, have options. Like, we don't need Netflix. Like, I can get Netflix for probably a few months to get a couple shows, and I'm done with that. I'll cancel it. I can see a scenario one day, not saying now anytime soon, but maybe down the road, where companies are going to want people to sign contracts. Like, if you sign this deal for the subscription, that you need to commit to a year or a 2-year contract. I know cable companies started doing that recently, in recent years to keep customer base, which of course is bad. I don't like that, because I want to have options. Again, when I tell people about the beauty of subscription based stuff now too, it's not the money. Because people saying, oh, the cable this is getting higher to the point we're getting cable. No, the real freedom of this is the freedom, especially, to choose what you want. Remember, when you get cable, you're paying for channels, a lot of channels that you probably don't even realize you're paying for that you don't even want. Okay, so someone like me who gets cable and a bundle, basic bundle, I'm paying for like channels I don't really care for, like Lifetime and other these cooking channels I don't really care for. But you pay for it though in your bundle. At least with HBO Max, with Netflix, with Hulu, you have an option to stop it or continue it. You know, anytime you want. You know what you're paying for, and then if you don't want any more, you just stop it. Whereas cable is a little bit different. Now, the only angle, obviously, with cable the only issue I have with cable at this point now, where I've been struggling with, is sports. And yes, I do get NBA League Pass. I pay for it all the time. I love it. You know, or I'll order MLB at bat. You know, MLB. But I've had issues with you know, with local games, like okay, for example, for me, the Miami Heat. You know, to watch Miami Heat games on my TV, I have to have Comcast, because Bally Sports, which is the home of the Miami Heat, you know, is only available on that platform. Have yet to figure out their situation with Hulu Plus, with YouTube TV, with other streaming services. So again, this is a very, very telling era of streaming services now. We're going to see where this goes. This is interesting. We just heard today, Apple Plus is about to have the rights to the direct, you know, to the NFL Sunday Ticket. DirecTV's had that for many years. That's coming to end very soon, apparently. You know, that's going to change a lot of things. So where does Netflix go this going forward? I don't know. It's going to be very fascinating to see where Netflix goes. I'm really fascinated to see how this thing ends up. I really am. So